Hey yo, what's good? It's your boy Mixtape Moth, and today I'm gonna hit y'all with a review of the new Benny the Butcher EP entitled Pyrex Picasso. Let's get to it. Alright, so this is Buffalo rapper Benny the Butcher's second release of 2021. That is, if you don't count the lackluster Trust the Sopranos compilation, which was one of the more underwhelming projects to have dropped so far this year. There was nothing redeeming about it whatsoever, and as painful as it is to say, that compilation should have never have been released. But here we are with this brand new EP slash mixtape entitled Pyrex Picasso. Now, on social media, Benny had informed his followers that this project was actually recorded back in 2019, but this is the first time that the public has heard it. All the beats are handled by the producers Chop LaRock and Rare Scrilla. It contains 7 tracks and lasts approximately 19 minutes. It's a very quick listen, but with that being said, let me go ahead and hit y'all with this track by track breakdown. The opener, First Name Basis, is just an intro skit set to a cinematic beat where Benny describes being watched by the feds to this day. Even though he's clean and no longer in the drug game, it just sets the tone that on this project we are going to get raw, street, and mafioso imagery. Track 2, Flood the Block, has an up-tempo and punchy instrumental that sounds similar to some early 2000s Dipset Rockefeller production. We get some dope scratching on the hook that contains vocal excerpts from Big L, Herb McGruff, and AZ, which serves to give the track even more of a gutter New York rap aesthetic. Benny shows his street authenticity with the following bars. My album I wrote, cocaine dealing definitive. You had to play the game to really spit that articulate. The word about my name is I paint them pictures meticulous and roll with a brick on the train feeling adventurous. So in other words, all of these lines don't come from Benny's clever imagination, rather they come from real and lived experiences. He also has a line about disloyalty. The old work that you put in don't count cause y'all rats. Therefore, no matter how thorough you once were in the streets, once you rat, your reputation, your legacy is forever tarnished and your name is dead out here. Then Benny hits us with the jewel. Sometimes you sever ties, even if it leaves a scar. Thought that was pretty insightful. All in all, this was a dope first song, although it only contains 1 verse. I do wish it could have been more fleshed out. Right after is PWRDRL, which features a verse from El Camino. This is set to a gritty piano backdrop with dense drums. It's simple but effective production, and this is also another track that is just barely over the 2-minute mark. Here, Benny indicates that he ran a larger scale hustling operation. You know, it wasn't limited strictly to his Montana Ave block. He raps, I'm an East Coast Dawn, I got hitters in Cali too. One call I could rally troops, they coming in caddy coops. I was broke on my dick, plugged through me the alley-oop. I got the loading from Houston and drove it through Baton Rouge. El Camino's verse was pretty solid. I mean, it was pretty standard for El Camino, but with him, it's more about his gritty voice and authentic demeanor than it is with the bars. The following track, Pyrex Picasso featuring Conway, has more of a Plugs I Met 2 aesthetic sonically. Rick Hyde provides the hook, and it's pretty decent, but I couldn't help but think how El Camino probably could have made it pop a little more since he is a better singer at the end of the day. Benny raps, the streets took my kin from me, feeling like a Kennedy, sentenced me to a trilogy, but came back home with dignity. The Kennedy line is in reference to the Kennedy family in American politics, who have suffered tragic deaths and probably faced a lot more losses than most families. So Benny likens his own personal losses in the streets to that of the Kennedys. Conway gives us a solid verse, but I can't say it stood out to me as much as Benny's. Conway mentions rocking Virgil off Whites and Geiger kicks, which is pretty typical for Conway. Although I did like his following bars. I'm from Buffalo, the home of the drive-bys, out of a fiend rental, shots from the 4-5 fly. Then on 73, we get a dark orchestral backdrop with an obscure Spanish vocal sample. El Camino sets this off, and I like his verse much better than on track 3. He states, "They killed Nipsey Hussle in his own hood. That's why I don't never think that shit's all good." I mean, think about it. They murked Nipsey in broad daylight on a Sunday outside his own store in a busy business district with women and kids around. So it just reinforces how you got to keep your head on a swivel at all times. Benny also has some really standout lines. "You'll never be me. I'm legendary." Barry Gordy in 73 in the white Mercedes Benz with an ebony freak. 4 years in Yale and still won't be as clever as me. First off, the Barry Gordy in 73 line was super hard. Think about the imagery that evokes for a second. And his line about Yale reminded me of AZ's classic bars. "Now you're forced to listen. I got the mind of a grad from Princeton. Play your position, or soon you'll be lost and missing." Rick Hyde closes this one out, and it was just okay, but he did have a line that grabbed my attention. "The racks don't die like Bebe's kids. They keep on multiplying." Thought that was a little clever. The second to last song is The Iron Curtain. Here we get a pretty unique instrumental that has an obscure sample on top of synth organs and some brutal drums. On this one, Benny gives us 2 raw criminology verses. Is one of the more standout tracks on the project. He raps, "I'm bagging up a brick while I play Adele, Balenciaga space kicks, you know, the ones with no laces, been tied everywhere like Jay Prince. So if you know, you know. Jay Prince has a reach that extends much further than just Houston, Texas." Benny also reveals that Conway had given him his first strap when he was just 14 years old, but we had already heard this similar line on the Griselda project from 2019. The album then wraps up with Fly With Me. This contains an uplifting soul beat. Benny and Conway rap about staying down to come up, to pursue their dreams. I feel Benny and Conway provide some deeper reflection and give us some insight into what motivated them to make it out the streets. Benny recalls messing up his money in the drug game, but then shifting all his energy and focus into rap because he believed in himself enough to know that he would make it big. And at the end of the record, Benny gives us the jewel. "If you a real hustler, it's a ton of knowledge in being broke. So cherish that feeling." So that's a real positive spin that I think you could apply to whatever difficult situation you're going through. Overall, I give this project a rating of a strong 3.5 to 4 mics. Now, I realize this is a very short EP with just 6 songs in one skit, but I feel it's a dope body of work that I'm glad got to see the light of day. You can tell that these Benny verses were recorded during a time when he was focused entirely on demonstrating why he was the best hustling rapper or coke rapper in the game. This was after Tana Talk 3 and around the time of The Plugs I Met 1. So I guess you could say Benny was deep into that creative zone. Therefore, I think fans who wanted a raw Benny the Butcher project will be pretty satisfied with this release. That being said, it's not as good as Plugs I Met 1, but I feel it's a lot better than the Black Soprano Family mixtape from 2020 and way better than Trusted Sopranos. It is much more raw and uncut than anything that Benny has put out recently. That's for sure. So for fans who dislike the bigger and glossier production sounds found on Plugs I Met 2 or the Hit Boy album, they will surely dig this. Although I personally like the Plugs I Met 2 production a little more than the beats on Pyrex Picasso, but they were hard hitting enough. Hopefully Tana Talk 4 will be arriving sooner than later, but this was a cool little project that will tide fans over in the meantime. My favorite tracks include Flood the Block, Pyrex Picasso, The Iron Curtain, and Fly With Me. Let me know what you thought about this EP in the comment section below. It's your boy Mixtape Moth. I'm signing out, but be sure to hit that like button and please subscribe. As always, it's peace and blessings. Benny the Butcher, Pyrex Picasso, 1.